So the most frequently questions I get are, how many FPS will I get? Or will I get 120 FPS? Well, there are a lot of factors that impact FPS, and after having long conversations explaining it, I thought I'd make a video about it. First, let's go through what FPS or frame rate actually means. Essentially, any video is a compilation of still images, and the more images there are within a second, the smoother that animation or video will be. Although there are different use cases like cartoons, movies, or gaming, a different frame rate is preferred for each use case. However, since we're looking at it from a gaming perspective, let's talk about frame time and how we actually interact with games. Frame time is a measure of time between each frame, and whenever we press a key, it's registered on a specific frame. The frame time is important because any inconsistency can lead to stuttering or variable input delays. So, a consistent frame rate is always preferred when you're looking for the smoothest possible experience. Theoretically, if there's no input lag from any other parts of the system except for the frame time, then 60 FPS means a max input delay of 16.7 milliseconds, and 120 FPS means a max input delay of 8.3 milliseconds. This would mean more FPS is equal to less input delay, but that's not always the case. Different game engines or how the game's designed or even different game modes are programmed very differently. For instance, a game like Taken can perform much more consistently due to limited variables, fixed or fully rendered backgrounds, whereas a game like Need for Speed or Battle Royales like Fortnite can't due to large maps which are loaded as you move across them. Hence, I'm gonna take Fortnite as an example how FPS varies with fixed set of motions and with different graphic settings. We're gonna start with the lowest graphic settings and work our way up. The FPS is gonna be indicated in the top right corner, and since we're running this test for consistency, 1% highs and lows will not be considered. Now that we're done, let's look at the numbers. The first thing to see here is that there's a major difference in FPS when it comes to low, competitive, and medium settings, with over 100 FPS. Secondly, the biggest reduction of FPS occurs when shadows are turned on using medium settings. And from what we've learned so far is that more FPS is equal to less input delay, and more consistency is equal to the smoothest possible experience. Now, the question is, should we play at 400 FPS with the lowest input delay? Or should we limit our FPS near the minimum for the smoothest possible experience? To make this answer easier, Battle Nonsense did an in-depth research regarding input lag, and it turns out that by limiting FPS and having consistency, although increases the minimum input delay, but it decreases both the average and the max input delays. Go check his content to get the complete details, and you'll definitely like it. So in conclusion, There are two ways to go about it. The first way is to limit FPS near the minimum FPS value. That way you'll get the most consistency and the least average input delay. This also helps in case you're streaming, that way your stream doesn't get affected. And the other way is limiting FPS right below the maximum FPS value. That way you'll get the best shortest input delay times, even though your average might be a little higher or you experience some inconsistencies in the game. The last thing to go over is high refresh rate monitors. Standard monitors or TVs have a refresh rate of 60 Hz, which means they display at the maximum of 60 frames per second. The most commonly found refresh rates are 60, 75, 144, and 240. People think having a high refresh monitor can reduce input lag or improve their game. I've even seen people with games running at 80 FPS and them getting a 144Hz monitor to play that game. Yes, high refresh rate monitors give a visual advantage, but if your PC can't deliver the same amount of FPS, then spending more on a CPU or a GPU makes much more sense. Since high refresh rate monitors don't really impact input delay, if you're limited by your own reaction time or by the PC's performance, then they hardly make a difference. I'll add a bunch of resources and links related to high refresh rate monitors and testing done by people like Linus and how much they can actually improve your gaming experience, but not your skill. So that's all for today. Until next time.